Well, you're listening to the Vital Moments podcast. My name is David. I'm joined by Ron, lead pastor, and my dad of Vitalpoint Church. How's it going?
Good.
Good?
Yep. I put those who are listening won't see this, but those who are watching, do they see my name?
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
It comes up.
Yeah. Ronald DJ Baker, which is David John.
David
John.
Yeah. What I find interesting is when people have middle names.
Mm-hmm.
They have a first name and a middle name, but they go by their middle name. I don't understand the whole reason for just being called by the middle name. If you really want to be that name, why isn't that just your first name?
Well, you figure our Uncle Paul, his name is actually John Paul Hales.
Yeah, I just don't get it. Why can't it just be Paul Hales and then John's his middle name?
It's Monday and I'm too tired to figure that
out. I love it. That's the best.
We're 65 seconds in. Let's go.
Okay.
I can't think of that right now because I don't go by David or John. So
I know. I just think it's interesting.
Ron.
So, like Ron said, let's jump in. We're in a series right now called How to Win at Life. And we technically should have been wrapping up this series this weekend because we were on the 9th slice of the fruit of the Spirit, self-control. And you dropped you're like, hey, guess what? We're going to do another week after this because I really feel like we need to. Surprise. And you said you're going to call it Fruit Roll Up Sunday. And I got to tell you, I had 2 people message me, we better be all getting fruit roll-ups. And I said, you never know.
Well, you looked into that, and you and I both know how expensive that would have been to give everybody a fruit roll-up.
Well, one person did say, I will donate all of them. I said, that's a few hundred, right? Like, there's not just like, hey, there's 10. But it was awesome, just the excitement around it. And I'm like, this is a good one. It's kind of clickbait-ish.
It sure is fruit roll-up. I love it. I've been writing the talk for this coming Sunday, and
that's awesome.
It's taking shape in a different way that I thought. So we'll see how it lands. But
I love it. But this weekend,
self-control.
This past weekend, we looked at self-control. You don't have control right now. I can feel it. Yeah, but we did look at self-control, and it was a fantastic weekend of really asking the hard question. Do I, as an individual, have self-control or have I lost control?
Yeah. Yeah, because that question was who or what is in control of your life?
Your life.
Yeah. And obviously, Paul talks about this in Galatians 5. It's the difference between the flesh and the spirit. And there's no in-between ground, right? So when you think
which we would sometimes think, well, we try to fight and say we are in between, or we try to make it clear, like, oh, like sometimes I am.
What are you,
guided
neutral?
By the spirit? Yeah, it's like that weird. Like we try to make it. No, it's you're either by the flesh or you're controlled by the spirit.
It's an interesting bookend. When you think about the fruit of the Spirit, it starts with love. And what I find so interesting about it is love permeates all the other 8, but then self-control actually brings more life to each of the 8 before it.
Yeah.
Right. And if there's lack of self-control, then it diminishes the work of the 8.
Yeah.
And I think that's, that for me was an eye opener when I was putting the talk together. I realized, self-control is actually when you look at it from a word definition or from it's this idea of spirit control, because it's the self-mastery or dominion is from within one person, but not by oneself. So I was just looking at my notes right there.
You don't have to announce to everyone.
Yeah, well, I'm looking over there. People are going to go, what is he looking at? Is he on Facebook? So it's the mastery from within, but not of oneself. And I think that was the beautiful revelation in this talk, or in this topic, was the understanding that it is truly about the Spirit's control in our lives. But I think what was interesting about the Sunday gatherings in our 3 locations, I don't know about online, but we really were moving people towards a place of ownership, of saying, yeah, there's areas of my life that are out of control. And because I've allowed the flesh to be more dominant than the spirit. And that's where a person who's a follower of Jesus. One guy came to me after the service in Poplar Hill. It was the coolest moment. He said, I became a Christian about a year ago. And he said, prior to coming to faith in Christ, he said, I kind of didn't think much about giving into the impulses and the desires in my life. I just did it. I didn't think too much about it. Rather, it was, forms of addiction or whatever. But then he said, now that he's become a Christian, it's like this crazy battle is taking place, like I'm living in the tension. Right. And it's so true. And I think that that's a piece, or I believe it's a piece of what we had to really move people towards an understanding of what that looks like and how it's fulfilled in our lives.
And I think you've done a good job helping us understand as a community, or someone that is just kind of tuning in every once in a while at Vitalpoint Church, that it's crazy how fast we can speed wobble.
Yeah.
And then that speed wobble turns into a full on like fishtail. Like you are spinning around. Like you've just lost control. You don't have hands. I think you use the analogy within the video sites. You're talking about like the handlebars, like smashing the gas tank.
Yeah. Because that's a speed wobble, right? It's if you've ever seen someone on a speed wobble on a bike, it's like the handlebars are going back and forth at a rapid pace. And all the rider can do is really just hang on. And so that's sort of the way we were talking about the lack of self-control. And it could be in all areas. It could be in, I shouldn't say all areas. It could be in a specific area of your life. You could be disciplined in a certain area. Like pro athletes oftentimes are so extremely disciplined in the area of their particular sport, but there's an area of their life that has lack of self-control. There's, whether it's sexual impulse or whatever, it's this. So for us, when we're trying to sort through what does it mean to be, self-controlled as a follower of Jesus, it's actually the willingness to surrender the control to the Spirit that controls our lives, to bring about the fruit of the Spirit, which is love, joy, peace, and so on. So I think it was a bit of an eye opener. I got a few messages. I got one message, sorry, not a few. I got one message particularly, and the person was just like, "Man, this series has really rocked my world." And it was interesting because it's awakening inside of people the reality of winning according to the world standards. You never really win. It only diminishes life. But if you are surrendered to the Spirit, what I kind of have this, self-control is living within the enjoyment of God's design with ordered desires that seek our best, controlled by the Spirit. So that way of living that brings everything else to life. Right. So it's not like getting rid of those things. We talked about Buddhism is this idea of, enlightened state where we're awakened to ultimate truth, where it suspends all desires and passions. Well, that's not what we're talking about here. We're actually talking about the reality of the Spirit of God controlling our lives to give us life in those areas, because your passions, your desires, your emotions, your feelings are given to us by God. That's how we're created. But when they're in order, under control of the Spirit of God, we can allow life to come out of those things. It's just, go ahead.
Let's spend the last 5 minutes. Last 5 minutes. Share your heart on what you desire Christ followers and non-Christ followers to understand in this conversation. Because I talked to people in Exeter. I talked to people at our Connector Leader training quickly after it, where it was another site. And I talked to one of our staff this morning. Like, this spoke to everyone, Christ follower, non-Christ follower. Like, we can identify that we are out of control in areas. So spend 5 minutes just talking about what your hope is and your desire is, where your heart is, for people to understand this.
Yeah, I'll speak to the Christ follower. It's the awakening to the reality of that tough question: who or what is in control of my life? And I believe that oftentimes what happens to a follower of Jesus over time is you slip into a pattern that is driven by your disordered, dysfunctional desires, deformed desires. And you make excuses for it. This is who I am. I can't change, and all those things. And I believe that the awakening to the reality is that God has given us not the spirit of fear, but a spirit of, love, power, love, and self-control. And so for me, I would say grow in your self-control, because 2 Peter, we talked about this, is growing in self-control makes you effective and fruitful. If the fruit of the Spirit is what we're shooting for and winning in life, is the evidence of the Spirit actively involved in our lives, then you have to be awakened to the reality of the Spirit must have more control in our lives than our desires and our flesh. And so for me, I would say to the follower of Jesus, it's been a wake-up call. And I hope that you've been awakened. If you're a follower of Jesus, you've been awakened to the reality is that you are actually have within yourself, by the Spirit of God, the power for self-control to bring life to the other 8. And I would say for a person who's not yet a follower of Jesus is that freedom is found in Jesus Christ, and the power to live that out is through the Spirit. So the destructive patterns you have right now can be broken. You can be set free, right? You can have new life. This coming weekend, and the Fruit Roll-Up Sunday, I'm going to be talking about verse 24, and it says, "And those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires." And then I'm going to go into Romans chapter 6, and not to give it all away, but
give us your message. Come on.
Let me read it for you. It's so good.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, it's so good. It says, "We know that our old self was crucified with him in order that the body of sin might be brought to nothing, so that we no longer be slaves to sin. For one who has died has been set free from sin." So I would say to the non-Christian who's listening to this, you literally can be set free, and you can stand right before God, and you can have that freedom that's available today from your guilt, from your shame. The pull of your past no longer has to have that power. The flesh no longer has to have that power. And because it has been crucified. So the actions of the crucifixion of Christ being nailed to the cross, our sin being placed upon him, is something that didn't just happen 2,000 years ago. It's happening now. And it happens in our lives. And so this is what I'm going to talk about this coming weekend. This is what I love about the Christian faith, which sets it apart from all other world religions. You can pick apart any world religion. You realize that it's all about what we do to earn that particular small g God a favor. And in the Christian faith, it's literally what Jesus has done for us, and it's incredible. Like that's why we call it the good news.
It's what the big G God has done for us.
Yeah. And so that's kind of what I hope will happen for people in this series. And I believe what will take shape in the heart of our church and those who are deciding whether or not they're going to be followers of Jesus is there's going to be a vibrancy when we are set free, when more and more people begin to understand that you can live each and every day surrendered to the Spirit, which brings life. John 10:10, Jesus, I come to give you life, and life to the full, or the abundant life. It's through the Spirit that we experience this. And imagine hundreds and hundreds of people learning every day to live that way. It'll change a town. It'll change a province. It could change a country. And
someone on our
go ahead.
Sorry, that you were saying like change a town, change a province. We had one of our prayer team members in Exeter. She came to me while the team was rehearsing, and we were singing "Fresh Fire" by Brandon Lake, or one of the Maverick City people, and she was like, "I'm starting to get this song now," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, like explain." She goes, "It starts with inside of me." And it's a fire that I desire for people to have. And it's like a wildfire. It spreads as we have a fresh fire. We light a match, we let it go, and we see people from the inside change, and it just spreads across because we have good news. Or it's just like, look, come and see what has changed my life. And the Spirit of God has restored me from the inside out. And it's no other religion, no other faith can ever do what the gospel has done, the gospel of Jesus Christ. And
I mean, for 2,000 years, it's changed people's lives. like transform their lives now and
Yeah.
eternity. Like,
Yeah. There was a guy down in the States a long time, I can't remember the dates, but he predicted that the Christian faith would go extinct in 100 years. And after his passing, the church bought his house and started printing Bibles out of it.
come on.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The gospel of Jesus Christ has been changing lives for over 2,000 years.
It's not going
So,
anywhere.
no, it ain't. Cool.
Until
Self-control.
Jesus comes back. Yep. Self-control.
Yeah. It's a beautiful conversation. And I can't wait for the fruit roll-up Sunday. Maybe we'll get the fruit roll-ups that have the tattoos on them and we all put them on our arms. Oh, man. Cool. I just get it.
And then you go into stores, you go, what's up with the fruit roll-ups? It's like,
yeah.
Can I tell you about Jesus?
At church, let me tell you about Jesus. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening. So exciting to have people listen along and follow along, but not just follow along, putting the practice of the ways of Jesus into their life. It's so beautiful. And we're praying for you. And if you have stories, man, reach out. Seriously.
Dude, I
one
wish
story at a time.
Yeah, tell us more stories. We want to hear the stories.
Yeah, and you never know. We might share your story in the future of Vitalpoint Church.
Only if they will let us. No fear.
Oh, yeah.
No pressure. No pressure.
No pressure. Yeah, we'll just use them without asking. I'm just kidding. We will always ask. But thanks so much, everyone. Have a great week and peace out.